So noting that it is 7:05 p.m. on December 18th, 2024, I'll call the Board of Health meeting to order. And since it's a virtual meeting, each Board of Health member will announce their presence. So Daryl Beardsley present.
Steve Constantine present.
Julie Dreyfus present.
Diana Hook present.
Rebecca Honeywell present.
Okay. And so we have two variance hearings this evening, a number of permit renewals for next year, and some other items of business. But first, I will announce any items to be added, potentially to be added to the agenda, as they were not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. And there are two things that have come to my attention. One is an installer permit, and the other is a food establishment permit renewal, and those would be for 2025. And since this is our last meeting in 24 before 25, but we might add them to the agenda. Are there any comments on that? Do we have a motion to add these items to the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay. Actually, Steve, would you like to do the, oh, you know what, Mark, are there any folks here who are
Let me check, Daryl.
waiting to have some issues discussed this evening?
Let's see, let me just move the screen around. Matt O'Donnell's here, I believe. Matt's here for 23 Stony Brook, or
Okay.
I get it mixed up with One Page Farm Road, but he's here for one of the two building applications.
Yeah,
Matt,
it's for One Page Farm.
One Page Farm, I thought so. Thank you, Matt. Once I saw you, I realized who you were. Thank you.
Okay, so let's do that. Let me just bring up that file.
And while you're doing that, Daryl, I can go over One Page Farm Road. Matt had submitted to us a preliminary building application. He would like to modify his house, especially in the kitchen area, to change it so it can be one whole room with an eating area versus a dining area and a kitchen. Presently, there are 10 rooms in the house, and he's trying to get it to 9. Septic system was approved in 1996. It's a unique system to some degree. Matt wasn't there when they put it in, but they put the system in 1996 with a review by the DEP, and it's a modified tight tank. Unfortunately, the lot is small next to wetlands, and there had to be a solution. And back in those days, we didn't have as many opportunities for IA technology. So the house presently looks as shown on the screen, with the 4 bedrooms on the second floor. And on the first floor, you have a heated sunroom, a family room, the kitchen, the dining room, and, excuse me, and the living room. And downstairs, you have a finished recreation room. So presently, there are 10 rooms in the house. There's a recreation room showing up. It's a unique basement where it has a walkout, but you have to walk upstairs. And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, up some stairs to get to the base area of the yard in the back. With that said, the new plans, the request is to modify the kitchen, which will actually, in my view, bring the house into compliance with the 9-room house per state code. And the recreation room would not be an issue. There is no finish full bathroom in the basement. And so they're looking to design, I don't know if you have that plan, Daryl, into another, excuse me, to change the kitchen into one room with an eating area. It may be further down. It's actually a schematic of it, and there you go there too.
Is this, yeah, it's, let's see if I can rotate this without what you do.
There was one colorful plan that showed an overview looking down into the rooms.
Okay. All right, then let me move down to that. Because now I've made everything upside down.
That's okay if you don't have it. It appears to be in good order. to what I can see here. But because
Mhm.
it was a unique type of septic system, I wanted to make sure I shared it with the board. There was a Title V inspection done on March 15th of 2022, and that was passing. So that passed. So that's a good sign as well that the septic system is still working and functioning. But
Mhm.
that's the existing wall in the kitchen between the dining area, and they're
Mhm.
hoping to take that wall down. And there is another plan. I don't know if it's on, I think it might be on file. There it is there, Daryl. To make it reduce it to one room versus two rooms that it presently is. With that said, I would recommend approval, but I wanted the board, here's that plan I was talking about. I guess it's not in color here, but it's looking down at the rooms and showing how the kitchen will be orientated with the wall removed from the dining area. But again, it's a unique system, modified tight tank. I really felt it was important that the board be part of this review. There's the passing Title V from March 15th of 2022. And I don't know if the board may have any comments, but in my view, this is making it compliant with a 4-bedroom septic system to have the 9 total rooms as shown.
Mhm. Okay, it seems reasonable to me. Does anyone have any questions for Mark or for Matt?
I've got one for Matt. Just wanted to know how often is the tight tank pumped out?
Steve, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, we've only lived there 2 years, and I believe the previous homeowners had it done around the time of the Title V, and we're actually having it done tomorrow. So we were told every 3 to 4 years was the recommended.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay.
Steve, and I can add a little bit to that. This is a very unique system. It has a 5,000-gallon septic tank that goes into actually a leaching field, but they put a gate valve right after the septic tank. And back in those days, there was a concept to design septic systems with some kind of holding capacity in case the leaching field failed. This was in tight soils. The design rate was 0.15, one of the lowest design rates because of the tightness of the soil. It's only used if the alarm goes off. Then they go out and they have to turn the gate valve so that they can turn it into a modified tight tank until the septic leaching field gets resolved or recovers. So I have not heard of any need to do that, but they do pump out this 5,000-gallon tank as a routine basis, according to the owner, every 2 to 5 years. But it's very special. We have 2 other systems in town that I know of this nature. One has a septic tank at the end of the leaching field, but this one is the front septic tank, but it's 5,000 gallons in case the leaching field goes into a failure mode. And it's almost like you have to wait for it to recover. And Matt, you haven't had that happen, have you?
No,
No, okay, I didn't think so. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to divert just a little bit, just to add on to where there was another tight tank. I don't believe it's needed at the moment, but there was a spa in downtown, which is now an office. So it's no longer serving as a spa. But because of the kinds of chemicals that might have been used there for hair coloring and other things, they had to have a tight tank because that material could not go into the septic system and then into the ground because a standard septic system would not manage those kind of chemicals. So that's another, really doesn't have any bearing on the residents, but just in terms of another tight tank in town.
And that's a
what it
true
was
tight
supposed
tank,
to
Daryl.
for.
Yeah, and that one's a true tight tank where it doesn't leach out
Yes.
anywhere. And it is
Yeah,
alarmed,
ever,
so
right.
they get, it's actually, it has nowhere to go but be pumped out. And an alarm would go off
Right.
when it gets to a certain level, usually 2/3 or 3/5. But that's a good point. We do have some tight tanks, only a tight tank. This one's more of a modified tight tank. It is a
Yeah,
modified tank.
tight tank when it needs to be a tight tank.
Correct,
So
yeah.
the other one, at the spa, they had the restroom and kitchenette waters going to the regular septic system. And then from the sinks or other places where they were using chemicals, that was diverted specially. So it was just for the chemical laden waters.
Yeah. And if this was designed maybe 10 to 15 years later, when they started utilizing more innovative alternative technologies such as the FAST system or even the Elgin and so forth, they have allowed for relief in this type of system. That's why we do not see these type of modified tight tanks any longer.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay,
But I would recommend
so-
approval to the board as presented if the board so
Mhm.
wishes to go forward with that approval.
Okay,
Excuse
and are there any conditions on this approval?
Yeah, yes,
Mark?
thank you, Darrell. I'm glad you asked that question. The condition which was set back when the system was approved in 1996 is that no garbage grinder be allowed.
Okay, oh, true, good point with the kitchen renovation.
So Matt,
Okay.
that will be a condition placed on the building plan when you so wish to submit it as a building application, as long as it matches what we're seeing here tonight.
Okay, perfect.
And we'll provide you with a form that you can use.
Oh, they've already, I think they may have
Oh,
that
they already
condition in writing already, Darrell. Back in those days, we did it as a approval of the approval letter that was sent out by our previous administrator. It notes
Oh,
that
yes.
in there, so it's already on file.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so that's
Okay.
just, all right. So do we have a motion to approve the building plan for 1 Page Farm Road, conditional to no garbage grinder being installed?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Okay, Matt, well, thank you for coming in.
Great, thank you for the time.
No, Tom's here. I don't see any other applicants here. I don't believe 23 Stony Brook's here. If they are, if they so wish to note that, but Tom's here waiting to go over some of his business.
Yeah. All right. Tom, I'll leave it up to you as to which of the food permit and tobacco and nicotine delivery permits you would like to address, in what order?
Is that for me, Daryl?
Yes,
Tom.
yes.
Oh, sure, sorry. So looking at, I don't see, is Jackson's on here? Just reading the list here.
Oh,
I don't see, I see Sherborn
Uh,
Fuel. But
yeah,
let's,
so Sherborn Fuel, oh, okay. So actually, Julie had a discussion with Jean today. Julie, would you like to just explain why we're only seeing the Sherborn Fuel at the moment? Because that's the permit application that's been assigned so far.
I don't know about the specific thing you're saying. I know about what we discussed with a temporary permit, but I thought that they were applying as Jackson's Food Kitchen.
I do believe
Oh,
the
sure.
owner,
Oh, it's under, yeah, the establishment name was Sherborn Fuel.
the owner did come in and he did submit a separate application, same owner, but
Oh, all right.
we
Then-
advised him that it should be under two names because it's two entities. even though
Ah.
it's the same owner.
Okay,
It's
All right,
DBA Jackson's Kitchen. I think it's just the way it's written on the agenda, but I'm looking at the application now. Yeah.
Okay.
okay,
At any rate, I did have the opportunity to stop by there last evening, to do a final inspection, and it seems like they've buttoned everything up there and actually came out really nice. So looking forward to some of the food that they produce out of there. So they've done everything on my end that I've asked them to, and they're in compliance. So I have no issue with them being issued a permit. And we did, in fact, as Mark had stated, opted for them to do a separate permit because this, although Mr. Weatherall is responsible for ownership right now, I don't know if there's going to be plans down the road. It is sub-metered. It has separate utilities in place, so I think, in case there's ever plans down the road, which I have no idea, but as of now, Mr. Weatherall owns it, but it is a separate DBA, so we thought it would be best to have two separate permits there. And then Sunshine Farm.
Hey, actually, before you go on with that, let's
Sure.
just circle around for a moment. One thing I'd like to do is go back and add another agenda item, or see if the board would be willing to add another agenda item. And that would be for a temporary food establishment permit for Jackson's Kitchen for the remainder of this year.
So you're looking for a motion to amend the agenda to include a temporary food
Yes.
for Jackson's Kitchen. I move that motion.
Oh, Diane, I think you're seconding, but you're muted.
Yes, and I don't know sign language, so I second the motion.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca, are you?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't get the mute to turn off. Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay, so here's the issue that came up with this. So as Tom mentioned, it seemed most appropriate to treat the different operations within the market under different permits. Currently, the Sherborn market has a permit for 2024, but Jackson's Kitchen does not. And they're contemplating beginning operations early next week. And therefore, that's why the issue of having a temporary permit to cover for the remainder of the year, temporary permit would cover 14 days, and that would take them to the end of the year. So that was that issue. And then for Sherborn Market, they're just looking for a renewal for 2025.
And Daryl,
Okay.
would Jackson's also be considered for next year as well? So because there's no meeting between now and January 6th.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
And
So it would be a temporary permit for the remainder of 2024 and an annual permit for 2025.
yes, for the Jackson's Kitchen.
And then,
So you can keep going.
sure, Sunshine Farm, I have no issue. I've done a routine inspection there this year. Everything is up to par. Sherborn Wine and Spirits, same. Dunkin' Donuts and Pine Hill Elementary, good on my end, and Pilgrim Church and CNL Frosty should be good to go. And that's also tobacco permits for Sherborn Wine and Spirits. I've done, I think, 2 tobacco inspections there this year. They seem to be doing well as far as being in compliance, and it gave them some signage and copies of the code and educational literature. Same thing with Sherborn Market as far as their tobacco permit goes, and frozen dessert license for CNL Frosty. We've been getting better at receiving the lab reports for those. There was an issue in the past, but they've been pretty consistent sending those over. So it appears these stated here should be good to go for annual permits for 2025.
Okay. And do any of these need to have sodium postings?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I actually noticed the sodium level for, I think it was the shared well with Rustic Pizza, Sherborn Market, and Jackson's. That was quite high. So
And
I
Tom,
mentioned that.
yeah, and I can help a little bit, Tom. The only one I
Sure.
believe that does not need a sodium posting is Pine Hill Elementary, but all the others do.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And I explained that to the gentleman the chef who's working for Mr. Weatherall last night, because they're usually dealing with city water and other places that they run, and I kind of explained, the expectation around that to have a sign. He said he was going to make a sign and post that there for the elevated sodium levels. I know Mark had mentioned in the past that sometimes these filtration systems actually introduce more sodium to the which can be an issue too, but
That is correct.
Right. Okay, maybe before we go too far, I guess, and there's the frozen desserts too, but I'm gonna try to suggest that we have a motion to approve the permits for Sherborn, the 2025 permits for Sherborn Market, Jackson's Kitchen, Sunshine Farm, Sherborn Wine and Spirits, Dunkin' Donuts, Pilgrim Church, and C&L Frosty, all for 2025, all conditional to a sodium posting.
So moved.
Would anyone?
I will second with the discussion point.
Okay.
Carol,
and,
this is
it's
the
been seconded,
motion.
now discussion.
This was you're listing off food permits, but Sherborn Wine and Spirits is not applying for a food permit. It's a tobacco and nicotine delivery. It's a different permit they're applying for, right?
They're also listed under food permit.
Okay, so you're not including the tobacco and nicotine, you're
Yeah,
just,
no, not yet.
okay.
I was gonna do
Okay,
that
I just wanted to
separate.
make sure we were not rolling that one in. We're getting feedback.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Darrell Beardsley, aye. And we're doing good, we have a couple minutes, let's see. Do we have a motion to approve the temporary food permit for Jackson's Kitchen for the remainder of 2024?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Darrell Beardsley, aye. Do we have a motion to approve the tobacco and nicotine delivery product sales permit for Sherborn Wine and Spirits for 2025?
So moved.
Seconded, but not with relish.
A very good caveat. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Caveat, smoking is bad for you. Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Darrell Beardsley, ditto, and aye. And for the frozen desserts and ice cream, you had mentioned that things are good there. Did they need a sodium posting there?
I will remind them if there isn't one.
Okay.
I can send him an email, and I can also address it in the next visit for 2025 as well, if it isn't.
Yeah, it seems like if they were up above in under item 2, then they're probably, so maybe we have, yeah, so to double check, how about, do we have a motion to approve the permit to sell frozen desserts and ice cream for C&L Frosty, subject to sodium posting if required? as determined by the food inspector.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Darrell Beardsley, aye. And so, Tom, I think that's all of your issues.
All right, very well.
Take
Thank
care.
you for
Tom.
having me.
Thank you
And
very much.
I hope everyone enjoys the season, and Happy New Year and happy holidays.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, Tom.
you.
You too. See you next year.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Daryl,
All
if I
right.
can, Daryl,
Yes.
just so you know, in between hearings, possibly if there's time, I just noticed another person showed up that is here. He's the general contractor for 23 Stony Brook. So maybe if there's time in between the hearings or after the hearings, but he has arrived. I see him in the room.
Okay, great.
you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So noting that it's 7:30 p.m., we have the hearing for septic replacement in Zion's Lane. And Dan McIntyre, I saw, had entered the meeting.
Yes.
And plan will be up in just a moment, Dan.
Okay.
And we received all of the green cards. So I'll let you take it away. Let me, oops, sorry, wrong.
All right.
Document.
For the record, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowners at 5 Zion. They recently purchased this home earlier this year. It's currently served by a cesspool with an overflow cesspool. So it does need a new septic system. Can you
Sorry,
find the
Mike.
plan, Darrell, or?
There we go. Nope,
There it
got
is.
it. Is it showing? All right.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Sorry for the markings on the PDF. We were highlighting some of the requirements of conservation for their approval.
Mhm.
But to orientate you, Zion's Lane is over on the right-hand side of the site. We've got a driveway coming in, and then an existing 3-bedroom home. As I mentioned, it's served by a cesspool right to the left of the house, right between the barn and the house, and then an overflow cesspool. And just note that, you know, at least one of those cesspools is within the 125-foot protected radius of an abutter as well. So wasn't really any room to put it back where the existing system is. So we investigated down in the main part of the lot and did some testing there. Groundwater was relatively high. It was pretty consistent, 3 feet below grade in all locations. So we are proposing to use an alternative technology system to treat the effluent to a higher quality and in turn get a reduced separation to groundwater based on the DEP approval for these Elgin systems. That allows us to get the system in without mounting the grade up so high as to interfere with the existing driveway or to extend the grading too much further into the 50-foot no disturb buffer of conservation. So we relocated the septic tank to the side of the house, and it's a gravity system right down to the Elgin trenches. As I mentioned, we're using the Elgin systems. It does treat the effluent better, so we're asking for a couple of waivers or variances related to the groundwater, and then a variance related to the offset to the wetlands. Sherborn has a wetland offset of 125 feet. We are complying with the Title V offset of 50 feet. that level is deemed by DEP to be protective of the wetlands. And again, I mentioned we did have this approved by conservation. So I think overall, this is a big improvement over the two cesspools with respect to separation of groundwater and separation to wells. We are closer to the wetlands, but again, we're using the IA technology to improve the effluent quality. I think with that,
If I can, Dan.
straightforward.
Yeah, and Daryl and Dan. Daryl, is there a chance you can move the plan up a little bit just so we can see the present well, and I'll let Dan explain the well situation.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
So the well for this property is actually across the street from Zion's Lane. It's on a separate parcel, but under the same ownership, or actually joint ownership, because it's a shared well with 5 Zion and 8 Zion share this well. But they do have ownership of the property that the well sits on.
And Dan, I know you and I were talking, your suggestion may be someday if they have a need to relocate the well onto their property, your decision to put the system on one corner, was that related to leaving some room for the well on the other side of the property?
It does. If there's ever an issue with this shared well, we can put it over, behind the barn, that area near the abutters well. Over in that area, we've got room to do that. So we don't create a hardship for ourselves in the future.
And that was good forethinking in my view. The other thing, Dan, is you had mentioned they may need to move the septic tank depending on the plumbing in the house. Maybe if you can explain that to some degree as well.
Sure. The new owners are going to be doing some renovations to the home. It's a existing 3-bedroom home. The floor plans, which I think we submitted, confirm that it's going to remain a 3-bedroom home. In preliminary discussions with the homeowner and their plumber, we came up with this particular arrangement. As the plumber started looking at it in more detail, he's not sure he can actually get the plumbing to that point because of the depth of that crawl space. So we're seeking approval of the overall plan tonight, but we may be back sometime in the future if we have to shift that septic tank a little bit to meet the requirements of the plumber.
I would ask the board if it doesn't interfere or require any variances, that could be a field change at the time of decision.
Okay. Do any other board members have any questions? I'm glad you talked about the well because I found it interesting. We don't often see shared wells. And I like the idea of how you arranged it so it could kind of a new well could benefit from this protective radius that's already been established in this area. But anybody else?
Well, I did have
Either
a
on the
question
board.
about
Go
the
ahead.
crawl space. Is that like instead of a basement? I mean, what does that look like?
It's just a dirt crawl space. There's no full basement under this home. This is a old home built in the 1800s.
Oh, okay, okay.
It doesn't have a full
Yeah.
basement.
Okay, thank you.
It also sounds like, given the high groundwater, it would have been hard to put in a
To do
basement
that.
and have it
Mhm.
not become an in-home pool. So
For the
it'd
pigs.
be nice. But are there any abutters or any other people in attendance who have any questions for Dan?
I just thought of a question for Dan. So I've been looking at the Elgin systems just to get familiar with them. What's the lifespan for those? How long do they usually last?
We expect them to last as long or even longer than a conventional system. They've been in use for really decades. They were, Massachusetts kind of a little bit behind the times on the alternative technology, but they finally came around when they revised Title V. But they've been used in other states for since the 70s.
Okay. And when they go, basically you just dig those up and add more of those plastic modules?
We haven't been able to dig one up yet, so, but yeah, I would think so.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to the variance requests, and certainly other questions could come up in the course of reviewing these. I'm not going to read all of it since it's visible on the screen, but so I'll ask, do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01 regarding groundwater offset?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Do we have a motion to grant a variance to 8.02 depth to seasonal high groundwater less than 5 feet?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to 10.2 regarding wetland offset? And I'll note that Conservation Commission has reviewed and approved this.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. So I'll close the hearing, and Mark, are the plans ready for approval?
Yes, the plans are ready for approval, conditional to 2 deed recordings. One deed recording for the prohibition for the use of a garbage grinder, and the other one for the use of innovative alternative technology, which that being the Elgin A42 units.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plans conditional to receipt of those 2 deed restrictions and acknowledging that, or let's say acknowledging, or what might be the other term for giving you license, Mark, to approve any septic tank relocation as a field change, provided that in your judgment that would be appropriate.
That makes sense. That's a good motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Darrell Beardsley, aye. Okay. Thank
very
you,
much.
Dan. We'll see you in just a few minutes, but
Alrighty.
let's try to squeeze in, what was the address again for the other?
12 Ivy.
23 Stony Brook. The
23
board
Stony Brook?
received,
Okay.
we had reviewed the plans before at
Mhm.
23 Stony Brook, and if the applicant submitted a deed recording to deed record the basement rooms, which they have, and they actually have recorded it already, but I wanted to go over it with the board. Darrell and I have had some discussion. The way they did this is practical. It's been done this way through other applications we've seen. But there was some discussion, maybe in the future, I don't know for this one that it's maybe too late, but it references the building plan that the board had reviewed. We haven't done that in the past, but in the meantime, we're bringing this back to the board since the board had reviewed the actual building application request, just to indicate that it has been completed. Talks about the room count, talks about the basement rooms, the 1 through 3 at the base there, not being used, the basement rooms not being used as bedrooms, and that the basement rooms are not included in the total room count, because if they ever needed to sell the house and do a Title V inspection, the inspector may call out that the house is a 5-bedroom house if they did not see this deed recording. So, and it is truly a 4-bedroom septic system. So I find it in good order, but I wanted to make sure the board had a chance to review it as well.
Right, and the concern I had is that because they were so proactive, what we didn't have the chance to do was to approve those plans, recognizing that they would have a deed recording, right? Because they were looking at options about which
That is
direction they
correct.
would go.
Yeah.
And so my concern, and this is more for their protection, is that it says existing basement rooms, but they're planning on making changes to the basement. So that's the only thing I was concerned about. And I'm not exactly sure. I mean, we can certainly note it by way of our minutes or a
Yes.
note to file about this property, just saying that it applies to the plans, and whenever we have a number for those building plans or something to attach to it, and put a note in our file to note that it's not existing on the day that this was filed, but more for the plans that are coming, just to make it clear for
Sure.
them in the future.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like it's out of compliance already by the time they do the project that we had discussed. But it was good of them. They certainly acted quickly to establish this. It's just
Yeah.
the coordination of the dates. So, you know, we might have to relay that to them and find out. They may want to file another deed recording, you know, with that additional information, but
Well,
I can
and that
bring it
will,
up.
and as you say, Darrell, that will come through as a building application. We can
Yeah.
add the building application to the file for this property, as well as the deed recording. And
Mhm.
you know, that
And
way,
just note that they go together
yeah.
as of this, you know, but the dates are just going to be misaligned in a way.
And just for overview, this was the house that the board reviewed, had an extension to the master bedroom, and below had an extension to the living room, but it had that doorway that was only like 8 feet versus the whole area opened. The applicant and the general contractor see if he wants to add into it, but the applicant decided they'd like to keep it that way and consider that living room area 2 rooms. So that and that's why their decision was to deed record the basement rooms so that they could have that
Mhm.
living room set up the way they originally had intended to have it.
Yes, yeah, I can
And
do
Richard,
that.
I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but Rick is here.
Yeah, hi, everybody. That's correct. We're gonna
Hi.
keep that as a room and we're deeding the basement. Are you asking that the plans be updated? Because Chris over the building department has this application. He's just
Yeah,
waiting for your approval, so
sure. After
not
this
sure what you
meeting,
need from us
yeah,
to
if it's the
finalize.
same, I'm sorry, Rick, if it's the same as what was presented, I believe it is. It's ironic. I've never seen a preliminary building application come in with a building application. You did both at the same time, but yes, once the board decides tonight, we will address that within the next few days to have it approved for you.
Okay,
And there we go. There's the plans actually that we had reviewed prior.
Yeah, it's just that I was concerned that the existing house, right, is different than what you're planning to do, and what we were trying to find was a way to approve it so that you know, if someone looked at the plans on file for the house as of December 11th, it would be pre-addition. So I just want to make sure that the homeowner is covered into the future, or future homeowners are covered about this deed restriction and how it applies.
And we will make sure the plans are showing Darrell the existing house, but below it
Yeah.
is the proposal, and we'll make sure those are added to the application and the deed recording, so they will all be in one central file.
Right, because there's this, yeah.
Yeah.
So in any case, just want to make sure it's clear in the future for anyone reviewing it. Because again, kind of the deed restriction came a little bit before. This is not yet the existing.
That is
That's
correct.
all.
Proposed, that's correct.
That's the main point, is it's not existing yet. So referred to as existing, which would then look like this.
The bottom, the lower plans. Right now, that's the present house. And
Yeah.
the plans prior, after this, are they going to be, are the proposed building changes?
So we'll do what we can in our files to address it.
Yep.
The other option is another deed recording, which is an extra effort. So, but you can contact us further.
I was
to
just
discuss.
asking, and Darrow is okay with the deed recording and maybe a vote that the deed recording is in order as the board so requested, if you so wish to vote on it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So do we have a motion to accept the deed recording as presented? With the provision that we add a note to file that it was meant to apply to, and then we'll have a building permit application number for this plan associated with that in a note to file. And we should provide a copy of that to the homeowner as well.
So moved.
That was not the shortest motion on earth, but
So moved.
Seconded.
okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. All right.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you, Rick.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, so noting that it's 7:50, we have a variance hearing for a septic replacement at Ivy Lane. The green cards have been received. Dan McIntyre's here, and I'm behind on opening up the files. I'll do that in a moment. And Dan, you can start, and I'll get that up as
All
soon
right,
as I can.
thank you. Dan McIntyre representing the owners of 12 Ivy Lane. They're in the process of selling the property and it failed the Title V inspection. So we were retained to design a new septic system. This is a house that was built in 1967. The disposal works construction permit on file with the town indicates it's a 3-bedroom septic system. The house itself is actually a 4-bedroom septic system. So we're taking this opportunity to increase the size of the septic so it matches what's actually in the home today.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
don't know why this is taking so very long to open.
Huh.
Let me try it again.
Do you want me to try to bring it up, Daryl?
Yeah, let's do that because I don't know what is happening. Let me stop sharing.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So to orientate you where we are, this is Ivy Lane over on the right-hand side. As I mentioned, this lot was created in 1967 and a 3-bedroom house was built. It's currently a 4-bedroom house. The existing system is down off the side of the house here. You can see the tank here goes off to a distribution box. And there's some sort of a system in this area here. We don't really know what it is or how big it is. But when we were reviewing it, we didn't see any possible way to put a system back where it belongs now. You can kind of see the size of the system where we actually did put it up in the front yard. It just wouldn't fit here. Couple other constraints on this site is when they built the subdivision back in the 1960s, they ran a drainage pipe through actually 2 of the lots, the abuttering lot and then through this lot here to discharge the street storm drainage and discharge it into a ditch here. Since that time, this ditch has turned into a regulated wetland. So we want to try to keep the system away from the wetland as well as that drainage pipe. So we felt the most appropriate place for it would be up in the front yard where we have more room and can get away from those constraints. So we did testing up in the front, groundwater at about 4 feet here. So we're mounting it up somewhat. It's kind of a sloping area, so we can blend it in so it doesn't look too bad. But then we have kind of a steep slope toward the back and the side. As I mentioned, we're upgrading this from a 3 to 4 bedroom. So we're putting in a Title V compliance system with a full reserve in between the trenches. Due to the plumbing in the house, the tanks have to be in the backyard. The way the current plumbing is, it comes out of the house in 2 locations. The main plumbing comes out of the side of the house here into the septic tank. And then there's a secondary discharge for a downstairs bathroom and the washing machine that comes out to a cesspool in the backyard. We looked at the house, we couldn't figure out any way to combine these 2 plumbing, so we're gonna still have plumbing coming out of the back, coming out of the side, and coming into a single septic tank here. Although it's a 4-bedroom house, we are gonna be increasing the size of the tank to a 2,000-gallon tank. And we did this for a specific reason. There is potential that flow could discharge from both of these points at the same time. If someone's doing laundry, or taking a shower upstairs, or doing the dishwasher upstairs, we could have a discharge from 2 locations into the single tank. So we wanted to have a larger compartment there to be able to take that flow without too much disruption of the liquid in the tank. That'll overflow into a pump tank, which will pump up to the front yard into a stone and pipe type system here. We are meeting all the Sherborn setbacks for abutting wells. You can see the 125-foot well radius here for the abutting well here. The neighbor up toward the top actually has 2 wells on his property. The closest one, we are also meeting the 125-foot setback. They're both upgrading wells. The neighbor across the street's well is toward the back of the house, so it's not shown on this plan. We are looking for a setback waiver on the existing well, which is located right here. We could really only get the 100-foot Title V separation between the new septic and the existing well. And that's not uncommon for systems that were designed back in the 60s when the setback was only 100 feet. One thing I want to point out about this particular well, though, is at some point they put on a garage and built a driveway over here, which comes over the wellhead. We had a little trouble finding it, but we eventually did find it. It had buried over the pipe of the well. So as part of this work, we're proposing to expose that well and put it in a H20 rated casing. The driveway can't really change, but at least the well will be protected with that casing, and we'll be able to at least access it if it ever needed to be accessed. We did go to conservation and get that approval for the setbacks to wetlands. And I think it's an overall big improvement from what's there today. So with that, I can turn it over for any questions.
Hey, Dan, just wanted to ask, do you know what kind of well it is? Is it a shallow well or?
No, it's a regular drilled well. It's a steel casing that they just buried over.
Daryl, if you may, Dan, you're in control of the plans. Can you go to page sheet 2? And you can show them the design of that well, the cover over the well, if you can get to sheet 2. I don't know if you have it here.
I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can.
But it does show the casing, a steel casing going into the ground. There it is, bottom left. Not bottom, just above it. There you go. There it is right there.
So it's a steel casing well. We're gonna expose it, put a concrete casing around it with a H20 rated cover to protect that.
Okay, thanks.
That's a great addition, I think. Appreciate that.
And
Are there
the-
any?
The driveway does have some slope to it, so it's not where we're gonna get water to come in and sit around that casing. The water's gonna kind of flow over, so that's an important part too.
Okay. So any other comments from the board or from any butters or others in attendance? Okay. Hearing none, if you want, I do have the request for variances available on my screen. So if you want to stop sharing, I can reshare. Okay, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01 regarding groundwater offset?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.02 regarding depth to seasonal high groundwater?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 10.1 regarding the distance to down gradient wells? And it's really just the on-site well that is not able to meet the Sherborn requirements, but then it's the on-site well, which is our preference over having to
So
grant that
moved.
kind of variance to a neighbors.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. And I'll say that I'm happy to see yet another cesspool being replaced with a more modern system. And so we will close the hearing. And are the plans ready for approval, Mark?
Yes, they are conditional to one deed recording. That deed recording will be for the garbage grinder prohibition.
All right. And do we have a motion to approve the plans conditional to the receipt of the garbage grinder deed restriction?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. And thank you, Dan.
Great, thank you very much.
Happy holidays, Dan.
You too.
Okay. Let's see, where are we? Ooh. I forgot to do this food establishment permit renewal, so let's take care of that now. Do we have a motion to approve the, and Tom, even though he didn't mention it earlier, he had sent in an email regarding that this was ready to go. So do we have a motion to issue the food establishment permit renewal for 2025 to Sweet Meadow Feed and Grain?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. And Mark, I believe you're familiar with the WC Rao Corporation? looking
Yes,
For an installer permit for renewal. Any
yes.
comments?
No, I recommend approval of that installer's permit request.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve WC Rao Corp's permit renewal for installer permit renewal for 2025?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye.
And Daryl, under
Uh,
business number 1, we have 5 others,
Okay,
5 other installers requesting approval.
okay. Any particular comments on any
No,
of them? Are they all renewals? Yes.
they're all renewals. I've worked with all of them. We don't see Irving that often, as we don't see WC Row that often, but again, they're in good standings, and I recommend these 5 also be approved for their
Okay.
installer permits.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve Disposal Works installer permit renewals for 2025 for Paul's Title V Services, DJ Morris Contracting, Scott Septic, Romolo Paul Lutazzi, and Irving Trucking and Excavation Company?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. And let's go to Steve, do you have a document to share regarding the administrator job opening update? Just
Sure,
in terms of the framework of where we're headed?
Sure, I can share that.
Okay, I'll stop sharing and let you share. So Steve and I met earlier this week, and Steve did some very nice organizing of information and preparation. So I'll let you take it away, Steve.
Okay. So like Joe just said, we got together this week and we had a chance to kind of go through how we wanted the process to work for looking for a new health administrator. So we put together a framework. This is also out in the folder, the Board of Health folder as well. So we hammered out the steps, some of the steps that we're going to use to put this together, and also worked on some interview questions. And I can kind of walk through this. So first thing is first thing is to update the job posting and job description. We've started doing that. It's not going to be a whole lot of changes, but there's definitely some we'd like to see. So that's something that we're currently working on. We should have that shortly. We'll send the framework. This framework is what we're doing right now to the team to review. Folks can take a look at it. The job posting and job description, we're going to run by Jeremy, get him to sign off on it. Have Jeremy publish the job posting. And then questions for the interview. So Gerald and I broke this down into 4 different sections. There's public health knowledge, communication skills, collaborative skills, technical/office skills. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to ask the team on the Board of Health if they can also provide some questions. So what we'll do is we'll go through those in a little bit, the ones that we've already got. But
Are you talking about questions for discussion when the candidates are reviewed, or are you talking about for the posting?
Questions for the candidate. So
When you interview them?
I'm sorry?
When you interview them?
Yes. So,
thanks. I was clarifying.
Okay, thanks. All right. So the next steps, receive and review candidate resumes. Daryl and I will get these and vet them for qualified folks, try to call out people that we don't think are going to fit. We'll schedule the interviews, and then we'll narrow the candidate field, the field of candidates. extend offers, and we'll work with Jeremy on that. Any questions folks have on the framework, or any steps you think we're missing? Okay.
Do you think that
Yeah.
this, I think I'm most interested in posting the job description, and I don't know, do you think that you're going to be changing the posting of the previous job posting much from what it was, so we can get candidates applying before next June? Sorry.
Yeah, we're not going to make too many changes to it. It looks pretty good the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many applicants we'll actually get over the holiday season. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but yeah, we'll have it out there. We'll work with Jeremy to get it out there. Within the next, hopefully the next couple of weeks, that'll be out there.
Because I think that the posting is excellent already, and you should just post it. And then we should definitely do all of these things before you start interviewing. But I'm concerned that it's already been several months, 2.5 months. And we haven't even posted a job, and that just makes it hard on everybody, I think. Especially
yeah, I agree. I think we're trying to move as fast as we can to get this out there. We just wanted to make sure we had some structure around it, and to get everyone involved with the interview questions, so that everyone's got a say in who we should choose as a candidate.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we also wanted to take kind of guidance from the kinds of applications that we saw for the last go round, and that's why we're making small but hopefully impactful changes. Be more clear about what public health duties look like in a town like Sherborn versus urban areas, which is quite different. And so I think a lot of the applicants we got previously were coming from much larger municipalities. And so they had specialties that really didn't apply so much to Sherborn, or make up a very small % of what we do. And so we're trying to avoid that again. It doesn't require big changes. It's just some different emphasis and clarity.
Thanks, Daryl. And then what I've got up here is, these are the interview questions. I'm not going to go through them one by one. Folks can take their time and go through them. And I'd love it if you could send some questions that you have on your own that you'd like to ask. But and again, drop them into these 4 categories, and I think we'll be good.
And if you have questions, maybe send them to Jean Greco, and then we can discuss them at the next meeting. Because really we'll be posting, and then the receipt of applications will come in for X amount of time, and we'll be interviewing. So there's time before the interviewing is going to happen.
Right.
But it should go to Jean, so we're not, so we're compliant with open meeting law.
If we can get those by the end of the month, that would be really helpful, because then we'll have a consolidated list of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to make one statement. I mean, I'm a MD. I've been working in public health for more than 35 years, like close to 50. And I think it's easy to underestimate, perhaps, because we do so much septic work on our board. I don't think that we should underestimate the importance of experience and interest in other areas of public health, because I think they do apply to our town, even though the town is small. Disease prevention, infectious diseases are absolutely important, and I don't think we should exclude candidates because they have an interest in those things. In fact, I think that the Board of Health could benefit from increasing our scope and doing more actual public health. The work before the board is largely septic approvals, but the immunization clinics and some of the other in recent years with COVID-19, I think that people in the community really appreciate it when the Board of Health discusses and has interest and background in some of those areas. So I think general public health experience, even in a big area, is still valuable, even if it isn't used every single day. That's all. I'm just putting a plug in.
Okay, if it sounded like I was saying that wasn't important, that's was not my intent. But we did receive people who applied who strictly dealt with, for example, counseling people on mental health issues and had no background in other areas. So we're trying to get a balance. So that's what I'm trying to say is that because it's a small department, people really have to be multidisciplinary. And we've got, shortly we will have the public health nurse through the shared services. So that'll cover some areas. Have a health agent working on others. We have a food inspector. But still, because there's this one central position, they need to be multifaceted. So that's, we're just trying to make that clear, not to eliminate or say there are parts of public health that aren't important, but we do have a different mix than, and partly that, then we also have a bigger mix because it is such a small department staff-wise.
I have you guys have done a really great job. Thank you for all of your work on this. It looks like for the managerial role, you've kind of broken that down here as communication and collaboration, which I think are two very fundamental parts of being a good supervisor. I think the one additional piece that I think of is your organizational skills. And certainly having the technical and office skills that you're calling out are important, but I'm thinking about the complexity of information that has to be organized on a daily basis, things that have to be organized over many months. I'm thinking about like a 45-day tracking system. Someone who is excellent at keeping things organized I think is going to be very, very important. And I'm not sure if that could fit under one of these existing 4 frameworks or if that would be its own. But that's just kind of my take home is organization matters.
I like the idea of it maybe being on its own because it is crucial. The administrator needs to be able to field and, as you said, coordinate, collaborate, but part of that is also seeing the big picture and understanding how all the parts fit together and keeping track of all those details that go along with it.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. Is the right application filled out? Have they gone through the proper process within the town? What day are we on out of the 45 days? There's lots of many details. And I think that would apply to regulatory compliance in general, matching up the activity with the regulations that govern it. So I think that's
we'll break that out.
Category.
Yep. And then we can hopefully the team can add some questions that'll address that. That'd be great.
I would love to see a question that would have them demonstrate their skills, those organization skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Diana, that's on you, it looks like.
Because I'm thinking anyone can say they're organized, but we need proof.
Oh yeah.
How do you pry that out of someone? Yeah, it's a good point. Okay. All right. I think that's about all I have. Oh, I know we also talked about how we go about doing interviews. We're kind of leaning towards doing 2-on-1, so we'd have two members and then the candidate. But again, we're still trying to work through some of that.
Actually, we did get some feedback from Jeremy. I sent in a question about whether that would be an open meeting law issue if we were switching off people by twos, because once one person works with another person in one interview and then a different person in another interview, then you start getting kind of that interconnection among the quorum. So, but he had, I thought, a nice idea. That was, we formed the work group of just Steve and I so that, we could talk together and formulate things and not be a quorum, but hash out some things and then come back just like tonight to the board to review. But that gets a little trickier when you're reviewing candidates and interviewing, because then there's an opportunity to kind of violate their privacy that they're looking for a job. So that could be awkward in the past, years gone by, for when we're interviewing for food inspectors. A number of people dropped out because at that time we were requiring that they came before the full board to talk to us and be interviewed, and people would back out because of that, because it was too risky for them, for the relationships with their current employers. So what Jeremy suggested is that between Stephen, Jeremy, and I, we do the best that we can to screen the applicant pool and come up with a smaller subset. And then the three of us could, Stephen, Jeremy, and I could interview people, but then the rest of the board could individually interview those people. And that would be a possible approach to give everyone a chance to meet all of the candidates. So keep that in mind. We'll be verifying that with Jeremy.
Sorry, I'll raise my hand. I don't know how other boards work, or actually, I don't know, even hardly know how this board works, because we had the same administrator forever. Do you know if it's ever possible to have an executive session where the board can just ask questions as a group?
Of an applicant?
Yeah,
no, it can't be done in executive session. It doesn't meet one of the, there are the, I think, 3 main requirements for executive session. It doesn't meet any of those. So the process that we're talking about, this sub-work group, this has been done for most of the, or really, I think for all of the recent hires in town.
No, I'm not objecting to the subgroup. I was just curious if there, if there's a way to have a group thing that anyone who's interested could just listen in, and it could get posted. And I was just curious. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Again, it's awkward for the applicants to have that. I guess we could ask the applicants at the time if they would want to come to a public meeting and be interviewed.
I'm sure it's fine, because I don't think it should be public. It would have to be private. Yeah, never mind. It doesn't matter. Okay. I was just asking a procedural question.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Any other issues for that at the moment?
No, I just pulled up, oh, I'm afraid I'm gonna enter. So I just pulled up the executive session reasons, and it's number 8 that I'm looking at. To consider or interview applicants for employment or appointment by a preliminary screening committee if the chair declares that an open meeting will have a detrimental effect in obtaining qualified applicants, provided, however, that this clause shall not apply to any meeting, including meetings of a preliminary screening committee, of which I would deem Stephen and Darrell to be that preliminary screening committee, to consider and interview applicants who have passed a prior preliminary screening. So I might want to make sure we get clarification from town council that what I, in a very fast read that as is, once maybe they have a candidate to bring forward, it might be possible for there to be a kind of a final or second interview before a job is offered to them by the full board, but I want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. But I would also say in addition, and I honestly think just as important as the full board, I would like anyone who's kind of gone through this preliminary screening to be able to come into town hall, see the space, meet the rest of our staff. I just think that's really important. But that's that doesn't require a meeting.
And it's not really an interview, it's more like a meet and greet.
Yeah, I think just right. And I think anyone that, you know, is seriously considering being considered, I think it would be important for them to be able to come in and see the space and meet the staff. I just think, I mean, I think the interviewing process is a two-way street, right? We're not just looking for an applicant, the applicant's looking for a place they want to be. And so I think for them to come in and actually, you know, meet staff and see the space is just part of them having a realistic vision and a practical vision of what their day-to-day is going to be.
And that might dovetail nicely with, let's say if we proceed with what Jeremy proposed, which was the three of us interviewing, doing the first round of interview with the candidates. And if we do that in person, then we can meet in town hall and then we can arrange to have it include that other element of the space and meeting the other staff and learning more about the position. That might fit in nicely. And then if they're still interested, then they could interview with the other board members.
I like that. We should make sure we have pastries on those days, something that makes it look really great.
Okay.
The great board of health and pastries, huh?
Have like some fresh coffee.
Bake cookies.
It could be carrot sticks, but I don't think people are
No, that won't cut it.
I was going to say the apple a day, but okay. All right. See if we can do a record meeting. If we're done with that, then we can move on. And we just have a couple of other agenda items. One being, so Steve, if you want to
I'll stop. Yep.
stop share, then I can just share the agenda to keep us on track. Okay. Okay, so budget review. Since we're in a period of great flux right now, where we have an open position and to some degree the direction that we might take with the budget may change depending on the kind of folks apply for the position and whether we revamp the organization of how the work gets done within the Board of Health. We also have some interest from Dover and possibly Medfield in looking at sharing staff across the towns because there's been some adjustments there. So Julie and I met with our advisory liaisons last week, and they understand where we're at and how it's difficult to predict. And the short story is that they basically recommended that in the absence of other information for now, that we submit the budget from for this fiscal year, which is FY25, for the next fiscal year, FY26. But add in the cost of living adjustments, the COLA increases for all staff positions, and submit that because that's going to be due by the end of the year. So I'll be asking for a motion to approve that budget approach for now. And then later in January, we have an appointment with the advisory committee to go in and meet with them to review the budget further. We may have more information at that point about how we see the budget going. So we could make adjustments between then, basically, and town meeting. But that's pretty much where we are now because we're in a period of uncertainty. Any questions about that? More to come. Everyone's welcome to come to advisory, of course.
Carol, I'll just add
And just as a reminder, there's just a meeting at one of, or an appointment at one of the advisory meetings in January where we'd go in and discuss things. Then there might be another opportunity to talk to them at one of their regular meetings. And then there's the all-day Saturday meeting in March that where everything gets reviewed and kind of readied for town meeting. And so that's another opportunity to have discussions. So if there's no other comment about the budget now, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the submittal of basically a budget for FY26 that is the FY25 budget plus cost of living adjustments.
Daryl, what is the COLA for this year?
COLA is that cost of living adjustment. Each year they determine.
Well, no, I know what it is. I mean, what
what's
percentage?
the figure?
Yeah.
I think it's around 2.5%, but I don't
Okay.
remember what the exact number is for.
that was my memory.
I
as
did.
well.
Okay.
So does anyone want to move that?
Oh, so moved.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. Last two items, please. So we have meeting minutes. The last batch of meeting minutes that went out were, there were 4. Unfortunately, I don't have the dates in front of me.
Oh,
Sorry, can find
I
it.
have them, Daryl, because I knew that we were going to
Yay!
do this.
Yes.
It was for it was for February 26th, March 20th, April 24th, July 15th, and those were joint meetings that we held. I think they're all with ZBA. They were 40Bs, part of comprehensive hearings.
And so I prepared those minutes because I thought they would be short and easy. They were not as hard as the regular meetings, but they were a little longer than expected. But I just reviewed the portions of those joint meetings where the Board of Health had input and tried to provide a brief summary. Mark provided some comments already on things I thought I had changed, but I had missed because I was kind of using a copy of one to set up for the next. So he gave me some input. If anyone else has comments, I don't know, on those.
Thank you for doing those, Daryl. I reviewed them and they seemed fine to me.
Okay. So I will incorporate Mark's comments, and so if there are no others, do we have a motion to approve those 4 sets of minutes as amended?
For
So
the joint
moved.
meetings, right?
Yes, for the 4 joint meetings.
Seconded.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay. And we still have others, and the minutes clerk has had recently provided, but I didn't think everyone would have had maybe enough time to review them. They just came in, the minutes from November 4th. So we'll probably aim to do that at the next meeting. And I will try to remember to send out a reminder. Anyone feel free to prod me if you don't see it about which sets of minutes we should really try and get done by the next meeting. Some of them are tough. They just needed a little bit more information cleaned up in them.
I think it was September
yeah.
4th.
Yeah, I was just going
September,
to say that,
yes.
September 4th.
Oh, yeah, did I say, okay, yeah.
You said
September 4th.
November.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that
have.
answers my question because I'm thinking I didn't get November, but okay. Yeah.
All right. Agenda items. So meeting minutes will be one. Status again of the administrator search. We'll have another update maybe on the incoming public health nurse to the shared services, who will be starting, I just got word, February 10th, so we can have that on the meeting. I just prep for that person coming on board. And does anyone have anything else in mind?
We're not sure yet, Daryl, on any of the variance hearings. We're still waiting on conservation approvals, so hopefully we'll have a better idea before the meeting.
All right. Okay, so certainly if anyone has suggestions for things to be added to the agenda, again, send them into Jean, and then she'll get them to me. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
This was one of my Christmas wishes, to be done before 9. I'm so happy. So moved.
Seconded.
All right. Any further discussion? I doubt. No. I'm hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. And truly, everyone have a wonderful time.
Same to you all.
Everyone have a good
Yeah.
holiday.
Great
Yes.
holiday to everyone.
Thank
See
you.
you
care.
all on
Happy
the 8th.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.